and not just America, all the countries. They're people that, if you lie long enough, how do you tell the truth after you lie for a long period of time? If you tell the truth, then no one's going to believe you at that point either.
Yeah, and it's puzzling exactly how. It's like I say, they're kind of like punching in the stomach and then patting, in the back. One instant they're denying it, even going to very threatening situations to hide it, and then they turn around and say, "Yeah, this is our pilots are seeing these things, and we need your help to get these programs going." And so, it just doesn't make a lot of sense unless it's some type of psychological experiment.
Yeah, it could be, but I will say this. Going back in the early 90s, I took a break from broadcasting. I got really burned out. And my other passion besides, talking on the radio has always been photography. And I had the opportunity to manage 3 professional camera stores. And we used to import, military Czechoslovakian and Russia optics, like infrared binoculars and monoculars, that type of stuff. Back then, now that was the first generation. And they were really expensive. Back then, it was like $3,000 for a monocular, But I remember taking one home, and I got bored looking at, like the neighbor's cat at night, or, oh, there's a raccoon, wow, that's really cool. I started looking at the sky. And Steve, what I saw, okay, now, again, we used to sell telescopes, so I used to have a nice, huge telescope, and I look and stargaze. I never really saw anything other than the planets, But when I looked through in the sky with these, I started seeing things that was really weird. Objects traveling straight, coming to a dead stop, and making a turn and going a complete opposite direction. Now, I know for a fact satellites can't do that. So it tells me that there was some stuff back even in the 90s up in the sky. I don't know if it was ours or theirs or, well, maybe, aliens, who knows? But there was objects out there. That following Monday, I was so excited. I put down notes, and we had a observatory, as I can't even pronounce it, up in Puyallup, Washington, that had like 13 members on it. And that's their whole life was stargazing. And one of the guys came in after I called him up, and he wanted to take a pair home for the weekend, and I let him do it. Every member of their group bought them. And every one of them was coming in and saying they're seeing these strange things, objects traveling really at extreme speeds, making crazy turns and going opposite directions, and then maybe making another turn again, zipping in space. Now, have you ever heard anything like that?
Yeah, I think, I honestly think if a person takes a time out of their busy schedule and just kind of looks at the sky, preferably go out into the country where you get an uninterrupted view. But, even when I was a young boy, we used to camp out in our backyard. And, sometimes it makes you wonder the nature of things, But we used to sit there and look at the stars with the telescopes and that, or we just stare up at the stars. And the oddest thing, if you stare at a star long enough, or what we thought were stars, it would move. It's like, okay, you're thinking about me, and it would move, and it makes you wonder what the universality of the phenomena. Can it be that universal that is in constant contact with us, no matter what? Things that appear normal aren't really normal. You can go out there and look at the stars, and some of the stars will move. What are they? They're obviously not stars, right? So, I don't know. It might be a young kid's mind's playing trick on them. I don't know.
I don't think so, Steve. I think you actually saw things move. And that's the whole thing, because you know what? Because of the internet, because of TV, because of computers, right? People don't go out and really do what they used to do. The turn of the century and going back farther, before TV was invented, let's put it that way. They would go out and, you know what? Their excitement, wasn't watching Jackie Gleason back then. It was, watching the sky, because it was exciting. People were always wanting to see something, and I think they were.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember it was a big event when Sputnik was put up, and we'd go out there and watch it cross the sky at night, that was a big event. But for me, I've had so many experiences over the years. Sometimes I just wonder if society at large is things are really coming to an end in some different ways. I've always been I had your early appraisal of the society, and how there's obviously some humans like to control other humans, and you can see that in our court systems and our government and things, just like some of the scandal going on now in Washington, and people, I guess they would like to get away from that. They got their sports that helps get their mind off it, or then they got certain movies, and by the way, which are very, very a disaster. One killing after another. But sometimes I begin to wonder the society we live in, if it's livable or survivable. I don't know. It's terrible. Some of the and we're controlled. Like you point out, there's the control mechanism being used in society. If it's either in the UFO topic, it's in the political topic, it's in the legal topic. I've had experiences with the legal cabal. One day, everything I thought was white turned black, and I got introduced to the control mechanisms of our court system. So I don't know. I don't know what's your appraisal of our present situation.
Well, I got in trouble last time I said anything. I got so many emails from the listeners. I think something is going on. I think maybe something down the road is going to hit the fan. Maybe it's not disclosure. Maybe it's something else. I think what they're trying to do is keep the American public not to think about it. I mean, you got the wall. You have what's going on with our president. This really bizarre stuff, right and left. And before that, like again, I mentioned that video came out with the two fighter pilots from the Nimitz, leaked out about the UFO chase. Then again, I'm going to refer to the Secretary of the Air Force talking about the next war will not be a ground war. It'll be in outer space. They need to be prepared. I think something is going on, and I don't know if the government can control it much longer, but I think what they're doing is creating a chaos area with society right now for people don't really think about it.
Yeah, that statement you made, I've heard that before many years ago too. I forget if it was a president or a politician that said that the next war will be with people from outer space. I've heard that before. I think President Reagan even made an allusion to that, didn't he?
Well, I can say something about Reagan. My dad served during World War II and into Korea partway. And then when he was going to be discharged, months before he was going to be discharged, he was in Korea. He met this guy. This guy turned out, you remember the TV show Rockford Files and all that?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that became my dad's best friend. And I didn't realize it. When I was a young kid, all I remember is this guy would come up and spend a couple weeks, a week to 2 weeks, every summer with my dad, and they would go do what guys, I guess, do. And then one day I was watching a TV show called Maverick, and then it hit me who the guy was.
You're talking about James Garner?
Right. It was a very close friend of my dad. And, and when I got older, I kind of got a little political. I got into, whatever. And I asked James, I said, hey, this one actor who's our president of the United States, I was really infatuated with Ronald Reagan. And, out of the blue moon, Reagan had a show for young people. He'd come on the national radio for an hour once a month, and young people could call up and talk to the president and ask a question. Well, I never called the president, but he called me. And that's because James, said, hey, because James was a good friend of Ronald Reagan. And then after I was on his national talk show thing, what he did, a week later, I get a phone call from the White House. And here's Ronald Reagan on the phone. Now, I don't care if people believe this or not. This is actually what happened. And I talked to Ronald Reagan. I think I talked to him a couple of times, because of James. And one thing I did ask him, I said, the Star Wars thing was in the newspaper every day. It was major on the news, right? And I asked him, I said, is that going to protect us against the Soviet Union? And he kind of like paused for a second. He goes, no, it's for them out there. And, I kind of like brushed it off. I didn't think about it after that. Not 2 years later, I started thinking, well, when he said out there, he ruled out the Soviet Union at the time, because he was always making jokes about the Soviet Union, like, hey, maybe we should nuke the Soviet Union, thinking he wasn't on the air and it went over. But he blatantly said, that it's for them out there. And he stressed that. Now, I know Nancy and him were into, some of the, strange things like, what do you call it? Horoscopes.
Astrology?
Yeah, all that. Yeah, he made a lot of his decisions was made on that. And it just tells me that maybe he leaked out a little bit to me, about out there. But again, I didn't think about it. But now when I think about it, it makes sense that, Star Wars and all this stuff, who knows what's out there?
Well, it makes it makes you think they maybe know a lot more than we've even suspected, But of course, he's made several statements. I think I'm not sure if he made a statement at the UN and to that effect, but he made several curious statements about allusions to UFOs and stuff. And of course, if we have technology that it assumes that we're using this type of technology, Star Wars, against more or less machines, and I'm not too sure that's what's involved. But I don't know. Maybe to a certain extent it may be. There may be different origins. Like I said, it's not all one place or one thing. It's a number of things. And
it makes me wonder, and again, Mary Joyce has been on my show. She runs a reporting center out of North Carolina, out of Cashiers, Carolina. It's a, UFO reporting center, Earth Changes, Bigfoot reporting center. And she's been doing it for years. She was a reporter an editor for some large newspapers when they were around. She, one day before we went on the air, she was telling me she had somebody that was high up in the government, gave her some information about a base in North Carolina that, supposedly an alien race supposed to be working with the government, giving them, technology. But she stressed from the information she got, these particular aliens or whatever they are, okay, if it's real, were the type that really didn't like mankind, other than if you think about Big Mac or, or something like that. They were cannibals.
Oh, my gosh.
And, and they were sharing technology with us. In return,